The 1920s, the time of prohibition and entertainment, a place for people to celebrate the best time, an age known as the Roaring Twenties, a period of strong optimism and a new fun-seeking attitude, including a brilliant idea for a famous novel written by a famous author. The Great Gatsby, a novel written by the great Scott Fitzgerald, is published at this time, captivating all of its readers. While the 1920s included prohibition and flappers, Fitzgerald uses the Roaring Twenties as a place and time period to distinguish the basis of the Great Gatsby by his characters of the novel and the social liability of the real world during that period. A man named Scott Fitzgerald writes this book, The Great Gatsby. Born on September 24, 1896 in St. Paul, Minnesota, a relatively small town at that time, he was struggling while living in an upper-class neighborhood with stately Victorian homes. On September 1919, he wrote and published his first novel, This Side of Paradise, which was accepted by a New York publisher at Charles Scribner's & Sons.
The postman rang the doorbell, and he got the news that it had been accepted for publication. And he ran out into the street, and he stopped everyone he knew to tell them that the young man who had promised great things in the past had now delivered.
To marry Golden Girl was one of Fitzgerald's desires. A woman named Zelda Sar grew up as a flapper girl, like the rest of her family was. But unlike her family, she proclaims that she wants to live her life as a modern girl.
When Zelda was a young girl, she loved diving off high platforms into the water. She used to delight in outraging the expectations of their elders. Chaperones at dances, she'd go by them and flip her back skirts at them. And she was that kind of girl. She knew how to have fun, and she knew how to flout convention.
These occurring events, including what was happening in the 20s, Fitzgerald was inspired to write a book about the 1920s and how it would affect the people during that time.
If you read Fitzgerald's writing, you get the sense that he wrote in the same way that the birds sing, that it came to him very naturally, and that's not true. His first drafts are often undistinguished, and it was only through that laborious revision and the testing of the prose again and again against that marvelous ear that he had, that he was able to achieve the beautiful effects that we so much admire him for.
On April 10, 1925, like This Side of Paradise, The Great Gatsby is published by Charles Scribner & Sons. Right when people open the cover, it reveals a poem from Then Where the Gold Hat, apparently written by Thomas Parke Dean Villiers, whom in reality is a pen name by Fitzgerald.
Then wear the gold hat, if that will move her. If you can bounce high, bounce for her too, till she cry I love her. Gold-hatted, high-bouncing lover, I must have you.
One main component from The Great Gatsby compares lifestyles of each main character from the author, Fitzgerald, and his wife. J. Gatsby, known by few people as J. Gats, claims to be an Oxford man, but ironically, he was there for 5 months before moving to the army. Fitzgerald, on the other hand, went to Princeton University for the literary club, known as the Triangle Club, which later led to him writing fabulous novels, including Gatsby. Like Gatsby, he then served in the U.S. Army in 1917. The other main character, Daisy Buchanan, is compared to a great extent with Zelda. Although Daisy was married to Tom throughout the book, she earlier had an affair with Gatsby early on. Zelda was surrounded by other men before she married Fitzgerald. Unfortunately, there was one rule that Daisy and Zelda did break.
In well-to-do families, a young lady did not kiss a young man unless they were engaged to be married.
The book is about people who are from very, very highly stipulated social groups. Daisy is a rich girl who's really never had to work a day in her life.
Fitzgerald had one last novel, The Life of the Last Tycoon, but died of a heart attack in 1940 and was left unfinished. But 10 years before Fitzgerald's death, economy got worse. During the 1930s, the Great Depression had occurred. People today have made television specials and movies about how the Great Gatsby came to life. But it would not occur if it was not for a young man who would write what people call the great American novel. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is a highly significant novel because of one very important factor, the Roaring Twenties.
So we beat on. Boats against the current. Borne back ceaselessly into the past.